14,000. University of Waterloo is strong in engineering, math and computing, and science in general. Laurier is strong in other areas. Waterloo is a research-intensive university defined in Canada as those institutions that do beyond $150 million a year in externally funded research. There are, in fact, some 60 universities in Canada. Waterloo is in that third that does one-third of the 60 that do more than $150 million a year in research. You certainly wouldn't invite Waterloo here if this was a topic of how to train lawyers, how to train the new doctors that we need all the time. We are here in good company for what we do in the area of innovation and entrepreneurship. That is our claim to specialized knowledge and specialized experience and accomplishment. We have we have the normal tech transfer functions at the University of Waterloo, the same sort of functions that you would expect to find in those other research-intensive universities. I'm not going to talk about those today because I think there are a couple of other topics that are perhaps less obvious topics, but I'd like to use those and just cover three. I'd like to emphasize these three. Now I better push my button here. These three. First of all, the advantages that you can obtain, and we have obtained, by the empowering of student entrepreneurs to the creation of new ventures. I don't want to leave you with the impression that we don't support our faculty members in that regard. We do, but we also put a lot of effort in the support of our entrepreneurially minded students. So I'm going to give you two examples of how we empower these student entrepreneurs, one called Velocity and the other one called Enterprise Co-op. The second one is what we have learned about guiding lean ventures using primary research evidence. And here, again, two examples. One taken from the corporate innovation ventures, that is, as large companies try to be innovative, and sometimes they struggle with this, often they struggle with this, and what can we do through our training that we offer, advanced training, to improve corporate innovation. And the second example is entrepreneurial startup ventures. How do we do advanced training that supports the entrepreneurial-minded students? The third is various initiatives that we have nurturing the innovation ecosystem, a fancy word. It really means environment, the environment of the region of Waterloo. Some of these things could be applied in other regions, perhaps like Mecca. And here are two examples, Watco within the Accelerator Center of the University of Waterloo, and something called the Hub, which is within an organization called Communitech. I also make use of the fact that we have a very impressive number of students from Saudi Arabia at the University of Waterloo, an even more impressive number of students in Canada from Saudi Arabia, some 14,000 students from Saudi Arabia right now studying in Canada. About 200 are at Waterloo, and they tend to be focused in engineering, math, and science. And in any of my courses, and when I teach a graduate course, I have class sizes about 50. Fully 12 to 15% of my classes are students from Saudi Arabia. In fact, in our midst today are at least two of our former students, alums, from the University of Waterloo. I've made use of the fact that I had at my disposal people who knew the area of Jeddah and Mecca, but also knew the region of Waterloo and could give us some feedback. I know on the slide it says, no, in fact, it does say 6. 6 was the correct number. In a preliminary write-up, I had said that we would ask 2 of our Saudi students. We used 6. So these 6 are rather special. They know the local environment here, but they also know these examples that I'm about to describe to you from Waterloo. 2 of them are master's students, 4 of them are PhD students, 2 are from Mecca, 2 from Jeddah, and 2 from two other cities. So the first of these initiatives is the empowering student entrepreneurs toward new ventures. And I touched on the fact that velocity is the way we do this in part. There are several initiatives that do it, but velocity is one of these. Velocity is a residence for entrepreneurial students. Students compete to get into this immersive environment. They apply, but they're screened as well. They have to demonstrate that they have ideas. And when they're in there, it's totally immersive. They live it, they eat it, they sleep it, and they're thinking about their products and services with their colleagues, with their teams, 24 hours a day, I suppose, some of them. The focus in technologies tend to be in digital, mobile devices, web apps, and cloud computing. And these have the common attribute of having relatively low barriers to entry. These days, we're offering to the best of the teams 4 $25,000 awards per term, plus mentorship, networking, and office space, a place to expand their ventures. Another example under this empowering student entrepreneurs is what we do in enterprise co-op. Now, I do realize that in some of your local experiences with co-op, where students study for a term, work for a term, study for a term, work for a term, you haven't had always the greatest success. Our experience at Waterloo is the opposite. Some of our best programs, and I mean all of engineering, are entirely 100% co-op. But enterprise co-op is different. This is a system by which we encourage some students, carefully picked, to begin their own ventures on their co-op work terms and to start their own companies. We mentor them, we encourage them, we often are able to finance them, and this has been a very interesting initiative. Now you could ask, well, what is the impact of velocity? The first example I touched on. Well, some 70 students per term are invited to live in this residence, and they have, at any one time, about 20 startup companies underway. And this is, of course, a good thing for the local environment to have all these startup companies, because it contributes to the innovation intensity in the region of Waterloo. Kick Messenger was an example of one of the startups, and this is a texting app for smartphones. Pardon me. The founder, a guy named Ted Livingston, started this with a few friends not many years ago, 23 years old. He was very successful with it. He donated back $1 million to Velocity to, in a sense, support the people who will follow behind him and have funding to get their ventures seeded and off the ground. This $1 million donation from Ted inspired our Ontario government to match it with another $1 million. And that's a good news story. That's the obvious part of the story. In all of my examples, I've got an obvious part of the story and then one that is less than obvious. The less than obvious part is that this is contributing to the intensity, the vibrancy, the excitement of a lot of startups being tried in the region of Waterloo. And it's a critical mass issue. You've got to have a certain amount of the activity to attract the investors, the mentors, the risk capitalists, and this is what we are observing with Velocity. The other one that I use for this same example is what's happened with something called Desire to Learn. And the first enterprise co-op student was a guy named John Baker, and he started this in 1999. And it was an online learning management system. There was, by then, just 12 years later, D2L, as it's sometimes called, is in the hands of more than 8 million users around the world. 450 institutions are using it. It's headquartered still in our region of Waterloo, but it has offices in London and Singapore, Baltimore. It's up to 380 employees and so on. A pretty nice story to tell. But once again, The nice story to tell is at one level. The really important thing is the excitement that all of this generates with many examples, maybe not all quite so successful, but many examples. So we would ask our 6 Saudi students to give us feedback on these initiatives as we went through. I presented them what I'm presenting to you now. We stopped and did a questionnaire. And so I'll share with you in a few minutes what they told us. But the next one that we move to is guiding lean ventures using primary scientific evidence. And this is where we tackle the challenging task of teaching innovation and entrepreneurship. Some people will say you can't do that. How can you teach entrepreneurship? How can you teach innovation? I'm here to tell you you can. It helps if you're teaching entrepreneurially minded people, but you can organize courses. So here are 2 courses, one in business entrepreneurship and technology that focuses on the creation of new ventures at the early stage. And the other one is in the management of technological innovation, which deals with corporate enterprise, the established firms as they try to be creative and introduce new products and services. And we identified a gap in both of these. And in fact, in the corporate innovation ventures, we identified that there's a gap if you consider these 3 levels of stages, if you wish, of development where you could use evidence. The corporate world is pretty good at using evidence to refine the design of their product and service offering. They're not too bad at examining empirically how to position their firm strategically, but they're not very good at all when it comes to convincing the sponsors of their projects, convincing the rest of the organization that they should take on this activity. So we use, with our corporate innovation ventures, we've taken techniques from our entrepreneurship classes. So this is one you're familiar with. I know that you use it. It's the business model canvas. And we introduced that to the corporate training sessions because it gives more attention to the area that we call convince sponsors. On the entrepreneurial side, the same 3 areas that could use evidence, refine, design, position, strategically convince sponsors. This time, it's refine design that gets short attention. Most of the attention goes to convince sponsors, how to keep the money continually flowing. And not enough is spent through evidence, gathering the evidence that would help with the adjustment of the product and service offering. So we have ways in our curriculum to teach the evidence skills and introduce the evidence tools, and this is just a list of some of the things that would be covered under that topic. Once again, we had the questionnaire at the end of this part, and our Saudi students completed it anonymously. The third and last area that I wanted to touch on is what we do to nurture the innovation environment in the region of Waterloo. This time again, 2 examples, something called WATCO in the Accelerator Center, and this is a business accelerator, business incubator that has a team of advisors and mentors that provide quite a range of supportive services to the would-be entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs get space, they get a telephone, they get computers, they don't have to pay rent at the beginning, and this has been a very successful intervention, as has the second example, the hub in Communitech, which is a technology association in the community of Waterloo. Again, a space where people can have free or nearly free access to computers and networks and so on. This is a list of the incubatees that are currently in the hub. These are companies that are being incubated since 2010, because that's when the hub opened. It doesn't matter what their names are, it's just to show you that the list exists. Obviously, what we want to see is that these, or some significant portion of them, grow up to be large companies. You can see another list in that bottom right-hand corner of companies that were started in 1996 and grew to be a fair size by 2001, and it includes companies like Research in Motion and Open Text and DULSA. Here's a list of companies, incubatees from the Accelerator Center. It shows 28 that were established since 2006, and a number of graduates, 20 of them over 6 years. And the point of this is that it's wonderful to have a list, but within a fairly dense physical space, we have, and it's just a matter of 6 kilometers, 10-minute drive. We have professional service providers, mentors and advisors, and we have that velocity, we have enterprise co-op, we have management sciences and CBET, all of this between the two incubators that I'm describing now. And this is a good thing for the region. The less than obvious thing is that the two incubators and all of the initiatives, because we have other incubators as well, we've learned how to encourage them to be supportive of each other and not neutralize each other's efforts by being overly competitive. We want them to support each other, to trust each other, and to work effectively together. There's some tricks to doing that. It's extremely important that it be done. So after this section, we had the Saudi students complete their questionnaire.
You have 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
3 minutes. I can do it. Okay. We asked our Saudi students, what are the, in your opinion, what are the most important things in the region of Waterloo out of those 3 types? And what they're telling us is that number 1 was the empower the entrepreneurial students. The second most was guiding the lean ventures. Now, you don't see big differences here. You have to look pretty closely with a magnifying glass to even see if that there is a difference. The third order effect was nurturing the innovation ecosystem. We asked, are there any natural advantages in Mecca Techno Valley, advantages compared to the region of Waterloo? And they said that they thought there could be some. And here's some feedback to suggest, as you move closer to the middle in the green, they were not, the middle of the triangle here, they were not seeing advantage. So they saw lots of advantage in how you could empower entrepreneurial students and how you can guide lean ventures, as well as the third area. We asked them specifically, what are some of the things that are on this advantage list? They said, well, Mecca has a youthful population that want new opportunities. They're energetic. They have potential for new programs in this region. They want outlets for their ideas. They said that government is supportive of them. Industry is supportive. They also, the last one I think is quite interesting, they want to see Mecca being able to develop a unique culture of entrepreneurship, not simply imitating what other jurisdictions have done. And they were probably thinking about the culture of commerce in Jeddah. We also asked, what disadvantages might there be? And they said, yes, I suppose there are some disadvantages. And this says in this chart that, in fact, they saw some, but these were more like challenges, things to be overcome. They said, well, there are a limited number of mentors and advisors for entrepreneurs, but that could be solved. We also need a culture of greater risk-taking, something else that might be able to be shifted a little bit over time. An interesting one was the one third up from the bottom, which I had no way of knowing except I was told by these students, a need for enforceable laws to protect intellectual property and ideas. That what's the point of having